Welcome to Roll to Hit Gaming. I'm Lucas.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Chip.
And today we're going to present our 15 favorite games.
What we're going to focus on is space. Now, there's a lot of questions about what is a space game. People may think that it's flying around in space in a spaceship, or it could be something that's a little bit more sci-fi. What we decided to do is to focus solely on the space part of it, the exploration and the not terrestrial, non-planetary games.
Did we decide that? Is that?
I don't know if we decided anything. We try to make these categories so that it's a nice little title for a video, and you might be interested in that. Man, these things are hard to do because we're like, is that a space game? Is that a space? Well, you traveled through space to get there, obviously. It's tougher than it looks.
Needless to say, the way that we put our list together is that we each take time to make our individual list of a number of titles. Then we submit those in so that we're giving you a unique list of 15 favorite games without duplication. Mm-hmm. So hold on to your helmets, because here's our list.
I'm going to kick us off with my number 5, which is an old favorite from a galaxy far, far away. That's getting a 2.0 edition right now, so I don't know much about that, so I may not be able to talk to it. But mine is the XWing miniatures game. This one intrigued me because I've played miniature games for pushing 25 years now. Yes, I'm old. But this one, the whole flight path maneuver system was just brilliant in my mind because I've played air combat games in the past that sort of, kind of emulate that whole dogfight thing. This one absolutely nails it, and it's got the Star Wars theme, which I really, really enjoy. So for me, X-Wing, the miniatures game, checks in at number 5.
I do enjoy building up your little mini fleet, but I'm not very good at it because I tend to run into myself or other people or sons.
Yeah, this one does take a little bit of getting used to and learning how those turn dials work. I can appreciate it for a number of reasons. Number one, being a miniature painter, this is a game I can play and don't have to worry about painting. I don't have to worry about having another 100 miniatures that are unpainted in my backlog. I like that. There's also kind of a deck building aspect to this game. You're trying to build your fleet, figure out different combinations. So to me, being a longtime Magic player, it kind of scratched that itch a little bit too, combining miniatures, tabletop combat, and on the back end, I felt like I was building a deck while I was building my fleet, with the different combinations. So that's really cool.
And there's a ton of ships.
Oh, yeah, plenty. I don't like you. I don't know a lot about the second edition. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but we have so many at this point that if second edition flounders, I don't really have to worry about it because we can always play. So, great choice.
Well, for my number 5, I chose Star Trek Expeditions. This is the one where I get my space piece of it. At the top of the board, the Enterprise and the Klingons are fighting each other in orbit. And so, that's up in space. So down on the planet, the away team goes down and they are using their special skills, be it leadership or communication or medical, and they are accumulating points in order to complete missions. And these missions are used to...
They kind of further the story,
right? They're furthering the story, and and as you get these points, and there's a scale on the side because this planet needs, their technology increase, their politics, their environment. At the end of the game, you see what you score, and you can tell, okay, so what happened? What was the aftermath of you, interfering in this prime directive? So I really enjoy it. It is the same planet, which I've heard is a complaint, but there's differences because you don't know what missions are going to come up. You don't, so I enjoy it. And that was my number 5, Star Trek Expeditions.
Yeah, and it's got a little deck building too, in that you're getting cards with various crewmen and whatnot, and you're playing those when your guy acts, and you'll go to approach a challenge, and you've got to reach a certain die roll, and for every one of the additional skill icons you get, it adds it up. I did not put this on my list because I totally forgot about the whole little ship battle that's
space
going on
battle.
up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, which is really just one more way you can lose the game, right? So,
yeah, I can't give you any grief on your non-space game because I've never played it, but it sounds interesting. Well, mine, because I have almost a basketball team of kids at home, my number 5 is going to be a fun family game, and that's Lupin Chewie. It is space because Chewie is driving the Millennium Falcon in circles.
Is this how the day's going, or
no? It's going to get all serious from here out. But it's a really fun game, for kids and adults. It's a take on Lupin Louie. Chewie is riding the Millennium Falcon around and around and around, and you're trying to jump him over your stormtroopers and make him land and sweep your opponent's stormtroopers out into oblivion, I guess. So really fun. My kids, they just have a blast playing it, and I know some adults that have had good times.
Hold on,
when it got broken.
Hold on. In the non-Star Wars cash grab version,
mm-hmm.
What is the dude in?
A biplane,
and he's going after chickens, right?
Yes.
So you're dive bombing chickens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Look, I was raised not to judge, but
fair enough.
So Lupin Chewie, if you get a chance, try it out. You pick it up probably at the thrift store by now, but it's fun, just fun. Yep.
That's number 5.
So for my number 4, I chose Tiny Epic Galaxies. This is the one where you are building your empire and you're rolling dice. And on these dice are different symbols, and it will allow you to move your ship or increase your culture or your technology. And there's also cards out on the table which are planets. So when you move your ship, you can go to the planets and you can try to colonize. And once you colonize a planet, it gives you victory points, but it also gives you a special power. It's just a fun, small little card game with some extra little bits to it. But it's like this is your mini universe. And really the only interaction that you have is going out and trying to win these planets over. But there's also a follow mechanic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I absolutely adore about it, because it keeps you engaged the entire game, because you can follow the actions other people do by spending, I think it was culture points.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great one of the Tiny Epic line. It really gives you the feeling of going out and exploring and taking over the galaxy. And the Tiny Epic, they talk about small game, but it can take up a lot of room, right? But that's a good thing. It feels great. So.
Yep.
My number 4 will be a larger version of Tiny Epic Galaxies, also known as Twilight Imperium. The only one I've ever played is 3 and love it. Lucas and Jolene don't because it's an 11-hour game, but this is the epic conquest game, and it's one of those you do need to schedule and plan the day for.
Weekend.
I want to try the 4th edition. From what I've heard, there's a bit of streamlining there and maybe get an 11-hour game down to 6, 5 maybe. But I really think that this game has a lot of things going in it that I like. Exploration, combat, that kind of, and then resource management. I'm a real big fan of that. I think it's also one of those games where if you have 5 or 6 players that are really dedicated to the game and learn it, I think, get a game in 3 or 4 hours if everybody is focused and doing their thing, right? We chose to approach it as a learning game where only 1 of 6 players knew how to play. Well, somewhat knew how to play because they had watched some videos. And then tried to teach everybody, and it ended up being 11 hours where we had to eat lunch and dinner together, which was fine. We all like each other. But yeah, it's a game of exploration on a grand scale. It's going to take up a lot of table space, and it's going to require, the day. But it is really fun. I really enjoyed it. There's politics, there's exploration, there's resource management, like I said, and it's winner take all, at the end of the day. So race to 10 victory points, I think.
I think that's right. I mean, the components are great, and it's big, and it's epic, and it's pretty to look at, and they do real good job on the lore. Like when you're reading about your race and how they are, they put a lot of effort into that. I'm not big on the extermination piece of the 4X, and the fact that it was 11 hours, so it's like 2 strikes for me. But it definitely is an epic game. You need to sink your teeth into it at least once to say you did it.
Yeah, I agree. If you're looking for that, epic sci-fi 4X thing, this is your game. It's a brilliant design. It just takes all day. That's really my only problem with it, because everything else works. And I'm not going to criticize it too hard, because my number 4 takes all day, and it's a brilliant design, and that's Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't played this one in a very long time, and probably because of the time it takes to play. But, you're the crew of Battlestar Galactica, and one or more of you is likely a Cylon, and, the antics ensue, right? Obviously, the Cylon player is trying to be disruptive and sabotage what the human players are doing without getting caught. And when you do ultimately get caught, or you reveal yourself, your set of circumstances changes. And the whole game captures the I'm going to say the rebooted version of the show, because I don't remember a lot of the old version. I watched that when I was a child. But it captures the feel of that rebooted version of the show really well, because it's got that tension and that what is really going on here, who's on your side, who's not, all the while combating the threat of the waves of Cylons, because you've got to be prepared to jump, because you're going to get attacked again, right? It captures that feeling. So if you're into the TV show, I think you will love this game. Reserve an evening for it, because it takes several hours. But if you're not into the TV show, I think the game comes across well enough for you to get what's going on without having to have that background information. I just think if you do, you're going to enjoy it that much more. So my number 4 is Battlestar Galactica.
And I like the way that it escalates halfway through the game, because then those Cylon cards come out again, right? Yep. And so you may not have been one before, but you are now. Right. So I really enjoy this game. Yeah,
this is a great game for that trader mechanic. The only real weakness, I guess, is that if you have players that are not necessarily so sneaky or able to kind of conceal their motives, and they get pegged being the Cylons. If you detect the Cylons really early in the game, it kind of it kind of blunts the force of the game. But if you have a couple of players that are just really good at being Cylons, it can be a really great experience. Yeah, because you'll get to the point where every vote that comes up, you can't just say, okay, we'll do it, because you're going to run yourself out of resources, or you're going to miss a jump or whatever. So there comes that point where 2 or 3 people want to pass the vote, and one person is really looking at the board and saying, we can't go on like this. We have to draw a line in the sand and not do this. And then you've got immediately. Well, why don't you want to do this? What are you hiding or whatever? And so the drama ensues there. But great game, Battlestar Galactica.
And I think the human condition of, obviously my viewpoint is correct. Adds to that whole thing, right? Because they could be saying we can't do that because it's a dumb idea, and you're just not seeing that it's a dumb idea, right? But you think they're the traitor. That just adds to the whole thing.
And those are our number 4s.
Here we are at number 3 and continuing the epic journey through the stars. My choice is Ziya Legends of a Drift System. Now, this is Lucas's favorite game because he loves randomness in games. There are random elements in this game, but this is another one of those. You're exploring the stars, and that's the part I like. Right, I like a game that starts out with the hidden map that you're going to reveal through gameplay. Like I'm a real sucker for that, right? And this has that. You're exploring the galaxy and figuring out where and what. There's pick up and deliver is a big mechanic in the game. Or you could be a pirate and run around and take other people's stuff, steal their ships and blow them up and get victory fame points, I think is what they call it in Ziya. There's just a lot to do. The manufacturers, the designers call it a sandbox game, and I think there is a pretty good element of that. You can kind of do whatever you want to. You can run missions, take them from different areas and try to complete their objectives, all in an effort to hit the victory point threshold and claim victory. But I really like it.
It is sprawling though, so I mean, literally, if depending on the number of players you have, you might not even get anywhere close to anybody else. So you're kind of, in a way, you can be in your own little world. And it is definitely a sandbox. You could be anything, and then halfway through you could decide, I'm going to be a pirate now because this is not working out for me. So it does have a lot of random. I'll give it that. But if you go into the game knowing that, then just have fun with it. It's not a bad game.
Yeah, that's what I think about that.
Didn't have any input there.
I'm going to continue this on because I have nothing good to say about that game. My number 3 is Star Trek Fleet Captains. Now, this is another one of those. I guess that's kind of a theme with these space games. They're big, sprawling table hog things. But you take these little hexagonal tiles and you set up an area, and you start on your side, and the Klingons or whatever, the Romulans of the Dominion, you start on your side, and you're going to explore space. You're going to encounter things. You're going to have battles with each other if you want to. It kind of has a little bit of that X-Wing in that it's got those pre-painted click figures. Now, they're not the greatest paint jobs, but it is something you can just throw on the table and you didn't have to paint that. But you can encounter just about anything you would have come across while watching as a fan of the TV show, and that's what I like about it. It's got that Star Trek in a box feel, and I just really enjoy Star Trek Fleet Captains.
And it's another one to where, you don't know what's in front of you. You have to actually explore that hex to flip it, and it could be a planet, it could be open space, or it could be a hazard, So even though you're being confronting the other player, you're coming against each other and you're trying to gain territory, you never know what's going to happen on that flip.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not a bad game, and it's like is it just a 2-player?
Well, you could do 4, but I think that's a teams type scenario.
Right.
We've never played
so
it
is.
that. Yeah.
I think it's best at 2, so that you're in control of your entire.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I got to catch up on these Star Trek games. I haven't played this one either, but it sounds really.
Yeah,
fun.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, for my number 3, I chose Alien Artifacts. This is from Portal Games. It's a card game, but each of the cards represents planets. It represents ships, resources, and basically what you're doing is you're expanding your own territory. So you gain ships, and you use those ships, and you can build up on those ships, and then you can take a planet. Well, the planet gives you more resources, but you have to make a choice. At some point, you can flip it, and then that gives you victory points at the end of the game. So it's a puzzle on how long are you going to use that planet for the resources, or flip it for the victory points at the end. And so I really enjoy that crunchy puzzle. So that's my number 3, Alien Artifacts.
Yeah, I don't dislike this game. This one, because, the designer, Ignacy Trocek, is a genius.
He published it. It was
he's a publisher. He didn't design it. But he's a genius, and he finds great games. This one, I enjoy playing it, and will whenever it hits the table. But to me, it feels a lot like 51st State and Imperial Settlers. And so I'll choose one of those two over it. But yeah, it's great. The thing it does change to me are the planets. That third row, you're acquiring planets, or maybe it's the second row. I can't remember. But anyway, one of them, when you take the planet, you have to make a decision. Am I going to use this planet as the resource generation, and you can't take this back later, right? The choice is made, the traveler has come. You play it for the victory conditions, usually are going to be at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And so you're setting yourself up for a later victory. That's an interesting decision that those other two styles of game don't have, and I can appreciate it.
It's the building the technology or, going on. So I really do enjoy that one, though.
I felt underwhelmed after we played it, and I only played it the one time. I'm not sure I understood it, so I might need to play it again because, like you, I didn't dislike it. I just it was just kind of like, okay, and she stomped us, right? So she obviously got it. Yeah.
Well, those are our number 3s.
At number 2, I've got one that I waffled on quite a bit. I saw this one come on Kickstarter, and I backed it, and then before it ended, I ended up unbacking it. That's going to be Tasty Minstrel Games' Chimera Station. I've thought about this a lot. I don't know why I unbacked it, but I think it was because the little worker meeples, they're these little cartoony-looking aliens, and, you can upgrade them by basically snapping another ring on them, and that gives them, leaves where he produces food or extra hands or a brain or whatever, right? And I think I saw that as too kiddie or too toy, if that's
Toyish.
a word, right?
Toyish.
Toyish. And I think that's what backed me off of it. But we saw it again at BGG Con either last year or the year before. And I just couldn't help myself. And I pulled the trigger and I got it. And for good reason, right? I love worker placement games. And this one, you're building out Chimera Station, your space station, jointly, right? Because you're putting out tiles too. And each one of the little worker placement locations are tiles that come out of this great big stack. So it's going to unfold differently each time based on the choices that the players make, and this gives you so many different ways you can use your workers, so many different places you can send them, and those little plastic pieces turned out to be brilliant because you could take your normal worker and give him a brain, and now he's smarter and he can do the work more efficiently. Or the leaves can produce food because you got to feed these little monster things. They're not robots, which is what I thought in the beginning. They're some kind of monsters. You got to feed them. Or bad things are going to happen. Everything just worked in, and it turned it into a modular worker placement game that is just in that pure worker placement lane, and it gives me a great feeling when I play it. So my number 2, Chimera Station.
And another thing that was really cool was, if you started out with this plan in mind, and it wasn't working out, and then more worker placement hexes came out that you're like, oh, okay, I can change to this. You could go and undo that modification you just did to your little alien, and
that's right.
Instead of being Brainiac, now he has more arms, so he can do more actions, right? So you can change your path at any given point in the game. So that was really cool, that if you needed to change directions, you weren't stuck on that path.
That's terrifying. I agree. I saw this one come through as well and thought it was a bit toyish, but from what you say, it sounds like a really great game.
Well, I was worried
that'd be a good one for you.
Yeah, I was worried that was its only gimmick, right?
Yeah,
it was just a gimmick thing, but it wasn't. It's a really good game in there.
Well, for my number 2, I chose...
Not a space game.
It is a space game. It's Mission Red Planet. Now, yes, it's, on Mars or whatever, but you have to get there, and you have to build up your little rockets and put your personnel on, put your little astronauts on it, and eventually that rocket has to take off, and it up to Mars.
Or it might get sabotaged on the launch
Or
pad.
it may get sabotaged on the launch pad. But once you get up there, you're getting resources and getting territory, because you're a mining conglomerate and you're trying to make the most profit. You also have 9 cards in your hand, and it's action selection through those. So you play this card. You don't get it back until you bring all your cards back into your hand. So you got to be mindful of if I play this, I'm not going to get this back to play again right away. So have to plan out your moves, and there's a black hole, so if your little astronauts die, they go into the black hole.
I don't remember
I
the
had
black
a mission.
hole.
There's a black hole in the corner. The little astronauts die, and then they get sucked into the black hole.
Mission Red Planet.
I think you dreamed that.
Is a fine game.
Tell them
It
hole.
is one of my favorite games.
It is in space, and
It
you fly
is
to it.
a planetary game.
You fly.
This this title in particular was one I directly asked Lucas about, because to me the only thing spacey about it is you're flying a rocket ship from Earth to Mars. But really the game centers on the launch pad and Mars. It doesn't, the surface of Mars or the moon.
Or the black hole.
I don't remember a black hole.
There is
a space for your dead guys to go, yes.
Which is the black hole.
I can't remember if it's a black hole or not.
He's not right all the time.
But that's certainly true.
Dispute that.
That's certainly true. But no, Mission Red Planet is a fun game. A really, really fun game.
Yeah.
And, highly recommend it.
As a space game.
As a pseudo space game. A planetary space game.
If you like area control, play this game. Because once you travel through space and get to
Mars, the space part is done.
Yeah, which is this much. The area control there and the scoring points based on the different resource nodes, that is really, really good. I really enjoyed this. There's also those little bonus missions around that you can do whatever. I don't think I ever did one, so I'm not sure how you get to doing one, but I loved the moving around of my little astronaut pieces on Mars to occupy the right regions and get the right nodes and score that way. So I really enjoyed that.
Here's the space part of that game. Oh, my rocket is full now. Space. Now we're back on the planet. My number two, two is from a developer who I've really fallen in love with, Ryan Lockett, and that is Empires of the Void 2. I never played the first edition, but that second edition, man, it is ranking at the top of my list for him. Ryan Lockett has many other titles. This one, you've been driven away from the Earth system by some planetary enemy that came along and just whipped you really good. And you've been driven out into the far reaches of space where you found a new galaxy and you're going to colonize it. But there's other races there, so you've got to kind of work your influences or maybe you just land and crush them and take over the planet. Lots of choices there. It has, what do they call it? Different player races, different player powers. That's interesting, but they seem very balanced to me. And maybe we'll discover more as we play more. But this game really does it, because, like I said, you have you have two major decisions to make. Do you control the planet outright, or do you work your influence? Both of which can generate victory points for you. But if you're playing that influence game, you have to be very careful, because going in and taking over a planet wipes all your influence out. So, it's that trade-off you do there. There's some exploration, because there's hidden tiles on the planets that represent resources and things like that. There's a bit of technology development, like games like Eclipse have, and Twilight Imperium and things like that, where you can use those resources, build out a tech tree, and then in the end, it's victory points. It's a Euro game, but it's very good, and I highly recommend it. And anybody who's a Ryan Lockett fan, you should really enjoy this one.
Oh, and it's not really, it's not sandboxy like Ziya.
No.
You have mission cards, right?
Yeah.
So that can help kind of guide your play and give you a purpose. So I really like that. And then when you're traveling from location to location, there's smaller planets, there's larger planets. By controlling the influence of the larger planet, you get more victory points, of course, but you still get some for the smaller. But there's less confrontation there. You're not fighting the locals to get those smaller planets. So it's a very, well-made, well-balanced game. I did enjoy that a lot.
On to number one.
And for my number one, my favorite space game is Firefly, the game.
Yeah, boy.
Love this game. And all of its expansions all thrown into it. But if you are a fan of Firefly, you will love this game. If you're not a fan of Firefly, you will love this game. And I'll tell you why. So basically you're traveling from planet to planet. You're trying to fulfill missions. They could be outlaw missions. They could be just pick-up and delivery. It's a big, epic, sprawling pick-up and delivery game. But as you go, you're running into Reavers, or you're running into the police. I can't think of...
The Alliance.
The Alliance, if you're running into the Alliance. And as you visit these planets, you can go to the different shops and bazaars there, or you can pick up crew. There's just so much you can do in this big sprawling game, or you can misbehave and gamble. But every time you push your luck and go just a little bit further out, then you're picking up cards and you have to do these space hazards, right? I don't know. It's a ton of fun. I love misbehaving. It's my favorite space game. Firefly, the game.
And one thing I'll give Firefly credit for is the way the expansions interact or attach onto the game.
They meld well.
They do, and they don't add... They add a lot of real estate and places to go, but as far as new rules, they don't really put too much on you.
No curveballs, really. It all melds together.
If you understand how the base game works, the expansions are really just that, right? An expansion of those. I've played other games where you're almost learning a completely different set of rules when you implement an expansion.
Yeah.
But in Firefly, you don't really do that. There are a couple of alternative rules that happen, but most of the expansions are just more board space and more locations to go and do and discover. So give it big credit. Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorite space games.
Oh, and it's not, like the same game over and over, because there's actually like these big sprawling setups, like missions, right?
Yeah, there are mission cards.
You could do, like, one was a treasure hunt, right? So you just had to go out into the galaxy and find certain things. Another one is, you're, I don't know, it's just
trying to pay off
your debt,
ship,
right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I just love this game.
Yeah, really great game. Yep. My number one is going to be an oldie but goodie, and one of my absolute favorite ones. That's Race for the Galaxy. Now, this is a card game. I guess, is it considered a deck builder?
More like an engine builder.
Engine builder, I think. Yeah. The only downside of Race for the Galaxy card game, you're racing to get 15 planets under your belt and claim victory. You can do that a number of ways. There's production, there's military, there's exploration, things like that. There's very little interaction between players, and I can appreciate that. This is not one of those where I'm going to go and attack you or try to destroy you. We're really just racing to 15. And so it's quick play, especially, once people understand the game and how it works. Somebody's going to say, oh, well, all I got to do is get to 15 planets. So that kind of, you can, in early games, you'll start off and you'll have these sprawling empires and be producing and transferring and selling and making all this money. But at the end of the game, 15 planets wins the game for you. So, it's victory points, but 15 triggers the end and is going to win. So sooner or later, players figure out that you need to get to 15 planets. So I appreciate that. There are some expansions that just add different cards, but it's all built on the same thing. The only real drawback I have with the game is it has a heavy front-loaded iconography to learn. And I don't know that there's anything they can really do about that, because once you understand the iconography, it makes the game flow like butter. But, learning it right off the bat is a bit difficult. And in fact, this one, I had this game for quite a long time not being able to understand how to play through the rule book. Yeah. And it was, I think this is really the first game that I reached out to the YouTube community for assistance, help and guidance on learning this game. And really, that's really all you need. So everything I said about the difficulty of the iconography, if you have one person that can explain the game to you and just run you through a simple game, and again, one of the benefits of this game is, it's going to run really fast. You're going to get through it in, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
The more you play it, the faster
the more you play, the faster it gets. If you have one person that can explain it to you, after one game, you'll say, okay, I see how it works, and you're into it. So Race for the Galaxy is definitely one of my favorite space games.
Okay. My favorite space game is going to be, not to take a shot, right, but it is the version of Twilight Imperium that I can deal with, and that's going to be Eclipse. This basically takes Twilight Imperium, which is a very Ameritrashy type dice throwy game, and turns it into Eurogame, and that just put it into a wheelhouse that I loved. It's still got the 4Xs. It's still got the technologies and the exploration and all of those things. You just do it in a very nuts and bolts type of way, which I really enjoy. This one you have different kinds of little ships, much like you do in Twilight Imperium. But in this one, I can say this is the gun that's on this type of little ship through the technologies that I research or that I buy. And it's the same. Trying to get victory points deal. You've got your 3 lines of cubes, and as they're coming off, you're scoring. And getting closer to the end of the game. It gives me the feel that I think Chip gets from TI3. That same kind of feel in a game that's more in my wheelhouse. So my favorite space game is Eclipse.
I really did enjoy that. It's been a while since we...
And it's got a 2.0 coming. I'm kind of excited about that.
We haven't played it in a while. I just remembered the last time we played it that when the game finally ended and we kind of stepped back, it was like, wow, that was cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Eclipse is a wonderful game. For me, it's, if I don't have a group of players willing or don't have 11 hours to commit to TI3, Eclipse is a great hour and a half, 2 hour fill in, maybe even less than that, maybe in an hour, but really great. You're exploring, you're discovering, you're fighting some neutral enemy that are out there. When some of those ships are quite dangerous and quite difficult to overcome. The tech tree, for me in Eclipse, the tech tree is really where the game shines. There's so many options to go through, different avenues to go down. And I mean, you could delve into that for numerous plays and never do the same thing twice.
Yep. Yeah. And it's also got that, we have different races with different abilities thing going for it, right? So I think that makes for, especially with this theme, I think it really makes for, a dynamic experience because I'm not the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
Right. So those are our favorite 15 space games, even Mission Red Planet.
If you've got thoughts on what your favorite space games are, or thoughts on more of these videos with different subjects that you'd like to see, put them in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. For Roll to Hit Gaming, I'm Lucas.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Chip. We'll see you next time.